Good morning, dear students, and welcome back again to the geography class. And as I was teaching you the second chapter, and this is the fourth session. So let's do the quick revision what I taught you in the previous class. As you can see on your screen, there is two figures are given, but you need to see only the one. And in this figure 2.12 you can find this is a graph diagram that shows about the population change since 1800 and some even expected population is also shown here till 21st century. But before I explain you this diagram, let us do the quick revision with the population change. So on your screen you can find it is given there, population change, and I explain you what is the meaning of population change. Population change usually refer to the change in population in a given time period, maybe in 1 year or 2 year or maybe 5 year. But usually this population change is taken for the 10 years, and this is why this population change is also known as decadal population change. So usually in the study of population, there usually the population change is taken decade wise, because after every decade, after 10 years, usually the census is also published in most of the country. The population is numbered after every 10 years. So this is the population change I told you. Now in population change, that depends upon two important factors, and first one is, as you can see, is the birth rate. And what is the birth rate? I explain you. The birth rate is the total number of birth that is taken place per 1000 people or 1000 population every year. As you can see here, it is given here, the birth rate is the total number of live births per 1000 of population in a year. So here usually this rate of birth is usually calculated in so many ways. There are different ways are there. Now usually there are the one way in which live birth means the number of birth that is usually counted during the registration. As you can find, in every city there is a Nagar Palika. So now usually in every city, usually the birth registration and the death registration is usually done. Now all the parents, they need to take they have to nowadays actually in every school usually during for the admission of the children, and the one very must certificate has been submitted is the birth certificate, and this birth certificate is provided by the Nagar Palika of the different districts. So in order to just take this birth certificate, to get this birth certificate, parents need to register the birth of their children. Same way, there are so many matter is there, especially related to the property and the pension and so many things. For that, death certificate is also required, and this is why after the death, the people, they need to register of their young, means near and dear ones who died. And this is how actually usually the birth and the death is registered through the Nagarpalika of different districts. So district wise, and in village also there is a Gram Panchayat. So they usually register the birth rate and the death rate. So now next is, I explained you about the mortality rate or death rate. So what is the mortality rate? The number of people dies per 1000 population, that is usually called death rate, and this death rate is also called mortality rate. So this is what the two important factors, that is the birth rate, and second one is the mortality rate, that actually decides the population change. In fact, if you remember the last class, in the last session I explained you that how these birth rate and the death rate, three ways they influence the population change. So one example, suppose the birth rate is very high and death rate is very low. So what does it suggest? That the population is increasing, as the birth rate is very very high. So the number of population is increasing, but at the same time the death rate, that is the mortality rate, it's very low. So the same way as the newborn young infants are taking the birth here, so the mortality rate here is less, and this is why that shows the population is increasing with a rapid rate. So there is a very rapid growth of population is taking place. Then the second case I told you. Now suppose the birth rate is high. So the second case, the birth rate, suppose it is very very low, means the number of children being born are very few, but the mortality rate, that is death rate, is very high. Large number of people usually dies every year. Now that shows the population actually is decreasing. In this case, population is decreasing. Now this very seldom happens, but this is the second case. Then the third case, when the birth rate is very high, at the same time mortality rate is also very high, both are high, that means the population of that place, that region, where both birth rate and the mortality rate both are high, in that case you will find population is neither growing nor decreasing. It means the population is constant. So these are the three conditions, as you can say that these are the three conditions which affect the population change. Now let me show you one map here. Now this map shows you about the death rate, the total number of death per year, and this data actually is taken, that is from the 2010 world population data sheet. So according to this, if you find here, you can find many countries are all colored in green color, while some countries are colored in yellow. At the same time, some countries you can find they are colored in orange color, and there is one small part in Africa you can find colored in red. So here, if you find here in the corner, the number actually is given, one more color is here, blue color. Now what do you mean by the blue color? Now blue color suggests, as you can find here, in Saudi Arabia, in Arabian Peninsula, here some countries, small countries are also here, like Oman, and here UAE, Saudi Arabia. Then after Libya also in northern part of Africa. Then here very small country here in Central Asia. Then in South America also you can find there is a very small country, small part, small region here in Central America also. So here actually if you'll find the death rate actually is 1 to 4 person per 1000, means only 1 to 4 people dies per 1000 population every year. So it is very low. So blue color shows very less death rate. Now at the same time if you find the green, as you can find most of the countries in South America, North America, almost the whole North America, in Asia also, India, Pakistan, here China, and all these countries here in Southeast Asia, Malaysia, Indonesia, and Indonesian islands, Philippines, Singapore, all these countries, even Japan, they here Australia, this is New Zealand. In Africa also some of the countries here, right, you can find in northern part and in the south also. Then here in Europe also some countries, they are all shown in the green color. Now what does it shows? Now this suggests that here the death rate is 5 to 9% per 1000 population. So it means here also the population, means the death rate is very low. Now let's see here the yellow color. You can find the whole Russia is shown in yellow. Then the eastern part of many European countries here, Eastern Europe, many countries are shown with the yellow color. In Africa also you can find there are so many countries here in the eastern part of Africa and western part of Africa, then southern part of Africa, South Africa here, Zimbabwe, this one. So all these countries are shown in yellow color. Now if you see here the box that shows here the mortality rate is 10 to 14% per 1000 population. So that is medium, not less, neither very high. So we can say it's medium. Then again if you find here, there are so many countries shown in the orange color in Africa, especially in the central part of Africa you will find here so many countries shown in the orange color. Now all these countries, they are having how much mortality rate? If you see here, now the box suggests this is 15 to 19% per 1000. Now 15 to 19 is high. Now 15 to 19, that suggests actually these countries which is showing with the orange color, now usually they are having very high death rate. Now again there is two more boxes are shown. One is a very dark orange and red color. Well, dark orange doesn't shows any place, but red color shows there is one country in Africa, right? And this country is Zambia. So in Zambia, if you find the death rate is very high. So how much it is? Highest you can say in the world. So how much it is? So this is 25 to 29% per 1000. That is highest. So this is how actually this map actually shows about the death rate, and that death rate, the mortality rate, is based upon the data that is of 2010 world population data sheet. Now let's move to see the population change. Now here this figure 2.12 if you'll find. Now in this figure, if you see here, there are two columns. Now this column shows the year. Now this is 1800, this is 1850, 1900, this is 1950, 2000, this is 2050, and 21st means 2100. So this is in future. Now here this shows here 20246, this shows about the billions of people, population in billions. This shows the population in billion. So if you find here the decadal wise, not decadal wise, but here the population which is taken since 1800 and 50-year gap is taken. So in 1800, if you find the population actually is less than 1 billion. If you see here this point here, this is less than the half. So it is less than 1 billion, not even 1 billion. Population was not even 1 billion in 1800. And this population very gradually increases. This increase, the growth of population was very, very slow. So in 1850 actually it becomes 1 billion, just slightly above 1 billion. But now what happened in 19th century? After 50 years again, very gradual increase, and this comes close to 2, but not 2 you can see here. So we can say 1 point, this is about 1.7 billion. Moreover, this graph shows. So the population in the 19th century, that is 1900, was 1.7 billion. Now what happened in 1950? If you see here, now this rate of population gradually increases here. So now this what happens? So you can find here in 1950 this population shows about, you can see this line shows about 2 billion. So it is about 2.5 billion, or maybe this half is here, so this is 3, so less than 3 billion. It's not 3 billion even, so we can say 2.7 billion. So here actually if you see from 1900 to 1950 this population increases about 1 billion. As I told you, in 1900 this population was about 1.7, but in 1950 this became 2.7. So about, this is the increase of about 1 billion 50 years. But what happened after 1950? Now usually since 1900 in the 19th century, usually all the scientific discoveries, so many inventions were taken place, and in medical science, in every field of the science, and the life expectancy increases. Now because of this you will see since 1950 to 2000, this is 2000, in these 50 years what happened? So in 1950, as I told you, the population was about 2.7 billion, but in this 50 year up to 2000, this population increases how much? You can see here, look here, about just touching to 7 billion. So this 50 years, that shows a very, very rapid growth of population. Now what is the reason why this population increases so rapidly here in these 50 years after 1950? Well, after 1900, so many inventions and discoveries, they were taking place, and in every area of science the development was taking place. But after 1950 what happened? This development just started showing the result. Now better medical facilities, better nutritional values, better nutrition, better the quality of life, because of that is been provided by the government. So what happened? The birth rate increases very rapidly, and during this time what happened, the mortality rate also decreases, and that shows a very rapid increase in the population. So from 2.7 billion this population, it goes up to 7 billion. Too much it is. Now after 2000, the researchers actually, what they have researched, and they have found actually in most of the countries actually now, because they have understood the problem being faced by the increasing population. And even you can find in every house, when there was a time when every family they were having the 7-8 children, but now you can find automatically every family don't want too many children. Now usually you will find most of the families they are having only one child, some of them maybe two. So more than two actually now nobody wants, but still very few families they are having more than 2 children. So most of the families you will find they are having only 2 children, 1 or 2. But well, some of the families, right, they are having 3 or maybe 4. So it's 5 actually very rare. Well, so here as the population is now going down, and the researchers actually all they have expecting, so this growth of population will now decrease, because in every country automatically the change is this population change in the next 50 years. You can find we are expecting actually that this population in 2050 will reach to 10 billion. So from 7 billion to 10 billion. So this growth actually that suggests that is going down, and after that, because 10 billion will be, it is too much, and because of the excessive development, now what will happen after 2050, it is expected that till 21st century, 2100, this population will come down, it will become constant. So they are expecting only less than 11 billion. So this is the one graph that been shows about the past population, present, and the future population which has been expected. Well, so this is how I explained you, I have tried to explain you that how the birth rate and the mortality rate, it affects the population growth. Now next is I want to show you about the life expectancy. What do you mean by life expectancy? Now as I told you, after 19th century, the inventions and the discoveries which have taken place, and because of which actually now the life expected by the people, the average age of the people, it has increased. So let's see what do you mean by the life expectancy. Life expectancy means the life, look here, let me read it. So life expectancy is the average age a person is expected to live. Now there was a time actually when in the 18th century, usually the people, they just very few people they live more than 60 years. Why it is? Because, well, we can say that first of all the most of the people they were living in the rural areas, and because of the lack of the better medical facilities, so the old people, whenever they just get ill, so because of some very simple disease actually the people they die. Like example cholera. Nowadays, as we know, the cholera actually is a not so dangerous disease, but in the 18th century only a cholera was a very dangerous, it was a very dangerous disease. So here this is called the life expectancy. Now here, now at present if you'll find here, because now people they are having a better medical facility, now better nutrition is being provided, then after that the government also provides so many programs. As recently you can find the Indian government, they have introduced the health program, and this health program, what do you call it? So recently, as all of you know, our Prime Minister has introduced the Ayushman Bharat, this program, in which actually even the very very poor people, so they can get the medical facility from the hospital. Well, because of this actually so many, because of this better health care, now the average life of the person, now that has increased, and it is increasing now. So this is called life expectancy. Now very quickly let me just show you, just explain you about some more terms. Now another term actually is e-migration. First is the e-migration, and another one immigration. Now let me explain you what do you mean by the immigration and e-migration. Now, so if you find actually not only at present but even in the past, the one very very important problem which has been faced all over the world is migration. So sometimes actually in different parts of the world, when the population just increases and it just started creating a problem there, so large number of people, they migrate from that place. Now one very very good example we can see, that is in Europe. In 1400, after 14th century, now population of Europe was increasing, and after 14th century the new continents were also discovered, like North America, South America was discovered, Australia was discovered in 17th century, New Zealand was discovered, South Africa was discovered. In 18th century, what happened in Europe, an industrial revolution was introduced. So most of you must be knowing about the industrial revolution. So what happened actually? First of all, when the James Watt, he invented the steam engine, and this steam engine actually, it brought a revolution in the different industries, means factories, because previously all the factories, they were usually totally depend upon the workers, and usually all the work was carried by manual workers. So large number of people, they usually work in these factories, and all the work, all the production was actually done manually. So large number of people, they were doing it. But what happened when the first engine that was run by steam, when it was invented by James Watt, it brought a very very great revolution, and this is called industrial revolution. And every factories there in Europe, in all the countries like in Britain, Germany, or France, Spain, and Italy, and so many other countries also. So in all these countries, all the factories, they introduced the steam engine, and so many work was being done by the machines which was run by steam. So a steam engine which was run by steam. Well, now because of this actually large number of people, they just lost the job, because these factories, they get the better thing actually, the machines which was run by the engine. Now in the 18th century, one more problem which was being faced in Europe was rapid population increase. Population was also just increasing with a very very rapid rate, and at the same time this industrial revolution, it brought one big revolution. The rich people, they started becoming more richer at the same time, because this steam engine was introduced. So large number of people, they lost their job, and Europe was facing a population explosion problem. So this was the time actually when large number of people from Europe, they started migrating from Europe. large number of people, they migrated. They came to North America, they came to South America, then they came to South Africa. Many of them were sent to Australia, in New Zealand also. And this is why you can find in all these continents, maybe it is North America or South America, or maybe it is South Africa. South Africa actually is a part of Africa, so there must be, especially the black people should be found there, but you can find the Europeans are living there. Large number of European peoples are living there in South Africa, in Zimbabwe also, in some countries in southern part of Africa. In Australia you can find European people, in New Zealand also. So how actually? Because large number of these European people, they migrated to these continents and they settled there. Well, so this is actually a very, very good example of migration. Now this migration actually is of two types. One is called immigration, another is immigration. So what do you mean by immigration? If you just read this definition which is given here in your book, so it will confuse. You will get confused because both of the meaning is the same. So let me just make it easier for you. So let us take an example of India, and all of you know, from India also large number of people, they have migrated to Nepal, and this is why you can find in Bhairava market, you can find many Indians. They are doing business. At the same time, large number of people from Nepal, they also have migrated to India, and they are working in India, especially as a guard. We call them Bahadurs. Okay, well, so they are working as a guard actually in the different organizations, schools and different places. So what happens when these Nepali people, the people from Nepal, when they come to India, they settle here. So this is called immigration. As we are in India, so we will call this thing, this whole thing of migration, this whole migration will be called as immigration. Means the people coming from some other countries and settling in our country. But the Indians actually who have actually migrated to Nepal, now they have got the citizenship also even of Nepal, and they have settled there in Nepal. So we will call them, this whole process is called immigration. The people just leaving India and going to some other countries in order to settle there. So this is called immigration. And the people were called as immigrants. Same way, the people actually who comes from other countries and who settles in India, we call them this. First of all, this migration is called immigration, and the people are known as immigrants. But the people from India, those who have migrated to some other countries and settled there, like many people from India, they have migrated to America, and they have got the citizenship also, and they have settled there. So we will call them, the whole thing is, this migration is called immigration, and we call those people as immigrants. So this is the difference between the immigration and immigration. So recently you can find there is a large number of people from Syria. I explained you, I have given you this explanation. In Syria actually what happened, because the terrorist group ISIS, they have captured the whole region, and as they were killing the people there, so large number of people, they started migrating from Syria, and they migrated to Europe and so many other countries. So this migration in all those countries actually, so that will call immigration. When you will see from those countries, suppose in France and from Spain or Germany, so they will call this whole thing, this migration, as immigration, and the people who have gone there and settled there, so they will call those people as immigrants. But in Syria, some people who are still living there, what they will call this migration, they will call it immigration, and the people they will call immigrants. Well, so this is the explanation. Then again I have explained you that there are the two important factors actually which affect the migration. What are they? So they are called push factor and pull factor. So what is the push factor and what is the pull factor? So let me just again explain you. Push factor means, so let's take an example of Syria. Same place, Syria. Now in Syria, as large number of people, they have left their place. Now many of them actually, they were having a good business, big business. They were rich people there, and they were having a large property. But because of this terrorism, all these terrorist activities, so they have left all their properties behind, everything there, and they have migrated to some other countries. Now this whole thing actually is known as push factor. So they have been pushed from there. The factors which push the people from some region so that they migrate to other countries, that is called push factor. Now let's see what is the pull factor. Now from India, large number of students, those who pass out from IITs, we call them IITians. So they have a great demand in American countries, and also in European countries. So what happened? Because these countries, they give a very good package, very high package. So all these people or these students, they first of all they migrate to these countries, and after that they settle there. So what thing actually is attracting these IITians? That is a better job, a better package, good salary package. Now this factor is called pull factor. Because of this actually, large number of students from the IITs and IIMs from India, many engineers and management students, when they get a better opportunity, right, good job there in foreign countries, so that is attracting them and they just migrate. So this is example, two examples I have given you, the push factor and pull factor. Now let us see the composition of population. So if you'll find here, the population actually has so many different classification. It can classified first of all into the male and female population. Second thing, it can also be categorized into the different age groups. Here I can, as you can see there on your screen, table 2.3. Now this is the major classification is being done. One is the 0 to 14, this is called child population. Then 15 to 64 years, working population, and 65 plus is called old age population. So usually this is so here I was explaining you about the composition of population. So first of all is the sex ratio. What is the sex ratio? The sex ratio is the number of women and the men in a country in the important demographic characteristic. That is the ratio between the women and men. That is called sex ratio. Now usually if you'll find here, this thing is, so there is some problem here in the video, I think, I don't know, but let's carry on. Okay, so here is this is the sex ratio. Sex ratio means the ratio between the women and men population, and this is actually taken, as you can see here, the formula is given here. So the male population is divided by female population, it is multiplied by 100. So what we get? We get the number of male per 1000 female. Now in some countries actually this formula is being used. So they usually take the number of males per 1,000 female. Now in India actually we use the another method, as you can see here. So here the number of female population is divided by male population and multiplied by 100. So we get the number of females per 1,000 males. So these are the two ways by which actually the sex ratio is taken out. And now in some places actually, most of the backward countries, now usually we don't keep the countries in the backward category. So all the countries, they are categorized into two classifications, that is the developed countries, and the second group is the developing countries. But in the second group, developing country, you will find there are large number of countries where development is very slow. So in those places you can find still there is a discrimination is there, especially for the female. Large discrimination is being taken place still. So you can find in India or in the Middle East countries, you can find in Africa also. So usually in these countries you will find the parents, they want actually the male child, they prefer the male child over that female child, and that's why what happened, large number of the girls, they are been actually, what happened actually when they come to know that there is a girl child, so usually what they do, they just kill the child in the womb of the mother. Well, that is called abortion. Well, now this practice is also known as feticide, the female feticide or female infanticide. So this is actually a very, very common thing you can find in these countries. At the same time, in these countries you can find domestic violence against women. That is very, very common all over the world. Even in the developed countries also this thing is very, very common. So these are the things actually. Another thing is the age composition. Now I told you the age-wise composition of the population is called age composition. So usually this age composition can be done in a different way. Like example, 0 to 5, then 5 to 10, then 10 to 15, like this also this classification can be done. And the major classification usually, as I shown you this figure, is done in three categories: 0 to 14, 15 to 20, 64 and 65 plus. So this is 0 to 14 years, the population is called child population. 15 to 64, this population is called the working population, and 65 plus is called old age population. So this is how the population actually is categorized. Now usually you will find actually 0 to 14 actually the children they don't work. So usually, so they are not productive, but still in the future they will be productive. So usually they are kept into this group, first group, right? Second group is the productive group, productive section. Most of the people between 15 to 64 usually they work, so they contribute in the economy. Then after the retirement age, 65 plus means the old people, they don't work, so usually they depend upon their children. So like this actually, this is another class of the non-productive population. So this is why actually this major classification is done age wise. This is the three classification, 0 to 14 and 65 plus means the old people. These are the two categories. They are kept into the non-productive category, and this category, the age between 15 to 64, this population usually is called as the productive population or working population. Productive population or working population. Then after again there is a population also can be composed or can be classified into rural and urban distribution. So if you find in the 18th century there was a large number of people who were living in the rural, means the villages. Rural means village, urban means cities. But what happened? In the developed countries, you can find there are the large number of people. Usually they work in the cities, means the urban places. So this is a very important description. By the rural urban distribution, we can come to know about the development that is going in those countries. So the developed country that shows the high or large number of people working in the cities, means the urban. So you will find the high urban population, but the low rural population. Where? In the developed countries. But in the developing countries, you will find high rate of rural population, at the same time the low urban population. So by study of this classification, this rural and urban distribution, we can come to know about the development going on those particular countries. So today the time already is 45 plus, so I think we have to finish it. But let me just give you one more thing, then next class I will again explain you. So in next period you will study about the literacy rate, then again I will explain you about the population pyramid, right? And I will explain you the different population pyramid. I will show you, like you can see here, one here 2.14, another one 2.15, then here 2.16 here, right? And here 3 more population pyramid I will show you. So I will show you what is the meaning of this, how we read it, and how we explain it. So all the best all of you. Goodbye all of you.